Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakchurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagara Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Parigana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamstam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Harinami Pari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome to the Nectar of Instruction study. So you can see we have this wonderful book Nectar of Instruction displayed here. And in the middle, Srila Rupa Goswami writing for our benefit. And of course, our founder Acharya, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So with Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we can begin this study of Nectar of Instruction. So today we'll be discussing the preface. And in the preface, Srila Prabhupada is covering three main topics. Anybody care to offer up any of the three topics that Srila Prabhupada covers in the preface?
The activities to be done.
Okay, the activities to be done. Yeah. What else?
Attitude of the devotee.
Attitude of the devotee, yes.
Controls the mind and senses from evil.
Controlling the mind and senses, yeah. So three topics.
Who is eligible for the devotion service?
Yeah, who's eligible? So the main three topics here that Srila Prabhupada is covering in the preface are this movement is being conducted under the direction of Rupa Goswami. That is the first point Srila Prabhupada makes. And then Srila Prabhupada explains our first duty in spiritual affairs. So what is it that we're supposed to do? And then the third is, what is the conceptual key of the Nectar of Instruction? The key concept that Rupa Goswami is weaving through the entire Nectar of Instruction. So we'll discuss each of these 3 points in detail today. And then at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A as anyone needs. So the first point is the here that the Nectar of Instruction, it is a guide for all of us as neophyte devotees. Prabhupada says, but the Upamdeshita constitutes the first instruction for neophyte devotees. So this is the beginning instruction for all of us. And so the first point in this preface that Srila Prabhupada is very importantly establishing is that the entire Krishna consciousness movement is being conducted under the guidance and mercy of Rupa Goswami. We are aspiring to become Rupa Nugas. Nugas means one who follows. So Rupa Goswami is giving us very clear instructions here in these 11 verses. And so first let us discuss who is Rupa Goswami. So our parampara from Srila Prabhupada to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji to Bhakti Vinod Thakur up through, we are connected from there through Rupa Goswami to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there were 6 Goswamis, of which there's said 2 principal Goswamis, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, and we can say the leader of all the 6 Goswamis was Rupa Goswami. So our parampara comes through Rupa Goswami, and so he is very, very important to us in our following of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru parampara. So it's very important that we understand who is Rupa Goswami. We study 2 of his books. Srila Prabhupada translated 2 of his books. Rupa Goswami wrote many, many books, but 2 of them he translated. One is this Sri Upadeshamrita, which he presented as Nectar of Instruction. And the second book that Srila Prabhupada presented to us was the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which he presented as Nectar of Devotion. So 2 books full of nectar Srila Prabhupada has given to us. And so we should work to study both of those. So Rupa Goswami, as some of you may know, was a very prominent member of government. He was actually, we can consider in today's terms, like a finance minister for the Nawab Hussain Shah. And his brother Sanatan Goswami was the prime minister. And Rupa Goswami, with his very capable job, was earning quite a big income. He said when he retired from work duty to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he put all of his money into 2 gigantic boats. So when we say, oh, I have a boatload of money, Srila Rupa Goswami started a boatload of money concept. He truly had multiple boats of wealth. He was so wealthy. Yet he was fully detached. He was fully committed to living a life of austerity, serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. When he renounced his position with the government, he put on a kopin, carried with him, whatever materials he could have, and each night he would sleep under a different tree, carrying no permanent hermitage, and lived a very simple and renounced life. And his wealth, he showed us the formula for how to distribute one's wealth, and that we'll discuss in the future weeks. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as you see in this illustration, personally instructed Rupa Goswami 10 days consecutively at Prayag. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami on the principles of devotional service. He instructed him on how to perform bhakti. What is the mellows or rasa or taste that develops in bhakti? And so many more details, taking us to the highest realm of Krishna Prema. And Srila Prabhupada comments that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the heart of Rupa Goswami and empowered him to discuss all of the various conclusions. First for him to understand and then to write. And so Rupa Goswami was asked by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan along with his brother Sanatan Goswami. And he was asked to write these books that we are now studying so that we may understand directly from the mouth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through Rupa Goswami the teachings of how to bring about this pure love of God. And Rupa Goswami went on to instruct many others, including Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who then wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, his nephew Jiva Goswami, who became the next generation leader of the 6 Goswamis, and and became the world's most prominent philosopher of his time. And so this very important position of Rupa Goswami we must understand, and we seek his blessings to be able to understand the truths he is trying to convey to us. And Srila Prabhupada, when he was preparing to come to the West, he went, of all the places he could have went in Vrindavan, he went to Radha Damodar temple. And there, the samadhi of Rupa Goswami is situated. And it was there that he intensely prayed to Rupa Goswami for his mercy, so that he may make progress in fulfilling the orders of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him a very important instruction, which was to preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message all over the world. And Srila Prabhupada knew that unless he had the mercy of Rupa Goswami, he would not be successful. And so thus, he begged and prayed. And Sripad Hridayananda Maharaj's commentary, he tells the pastime of he was hearing in the middle of night some crying and howling type sounds, and he did not know what it was. After many, many, many consecutive nights, one night he finally figured out, decided, who is this? What is this noise? And so he went to his rooftop. And that sound he saw startled him. It was Srila Prabhupada, who was begging, crying at the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. He was bent over with a broom in his hand and sweeping the dust from the samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And he was begging, please give me mercy. Hey Rupa, hey Rupa, hey Sanatan. He was begging for the mercy of Rupa Goswami. And Maharaj comments that later, when he saw that it was none other than this Srila Prabhupada who had been able to fulfill the message and mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world, he said I was not surprised. It was that he had been chosen, seeing his great devotion and dedication to Rupa Goswami. So we see the important Srila Prabhupada placed on this particular place. And it's notable that when Srila Prabhupada returned to Vrindavan, he first took the devotees back to this Radha Damodar temple, and he lectured for many, many days, and these famous lectures, if you've ever heard them, if you haven't, please listen to them, on the Nectar of Devotion. They're very, very sweet. So, finally, let's discuss why Srila Rupa Goswami gave us the Nectar of Instruction. So he gave us this Nectar of Instruction to guide our activities. And this word guide is going to be very, very important. And activities. This is a practical guide for us that we can apply in our day-to-day life. As we work through these verses, we'll see how each verse is an instruction about how to shape our day-to-day activities. And what was the goal of shaping our activities? He had three objectives. One is so that we can become Goswamis. And he's going to define Goswamis in the first verse, we'll discuss next week, which means to be the master of our senses. And then to guide our activities so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. There is no greater accomplishment, no greater title, no greater goal one can achieve than to become a pure Vaishnava. And in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami is going to define pure Vaishnava and pure devotional service as Anyabhilashita Shunyam Gyanakamari Navatam Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. This highest bhakti. So he's guiding us on how to achieve that. And finally, what we are all looking for, the guide to how to make our lives successful and easier. How many of us want our lives to be easier and more successful? This is the ultimate success guide. So this is why Srila Rupa Goswami gave us this Nectar of Instruction, to guide our activities to accomplish these three things. So we'll keep this in the forefront of our mind as we study the coming verses. So the second point Srila Prabhupada makes in the preface is, what is our first duty? So anybody remember? Somebody offered it already, but what is the first duty in all spiritual affairs? What is the first thing that we must do?
Remember Krishna.
Control our mind and senses.
Remember Krishna and control our mind and senses. Yes. Srila Prabhupada says our first duty is to control our mind and senses. This is very, very important in our spiritual process. And why is it so important? Because without the control of the mind and senses, they go uncontrolled. And when they go uncontrolled, it can take us into very dangerous paths. Just like this illustration, the horses are the senses, and the ropes tying the horses together are the mind. When the ropes do not tie the horses tightly, and when the driver, who is the intelligence, does not control the reins or the ropes, the horses can go into any kind of direction. So like that, when our senses are drawn to all the different allurements of the material world, it is very, very dangerous for us. Because we may make decisions that have very bad consequences for us. So Srila Prabhupada is instructing us that our first duty here is to control the mind and senses. And the important point of controlling the mind and senses then is how to do it. Right? How to do it. Controlling them by some dry process. I'm just going to give up my sense enjoyments. It's extraordinarily difficult, and we can say impossible. But by the practice of bhakti, the controlling of the senses becomes very easy and actually enjoyable. By engaging the senses in devotional service, the senses automatically become controlled without any secondary effort. And so Srila Rupa Goswami will be guiding us on this. The first verse we'll discuss next week is about controlling these 6 urges: Vacho Vegam, Manasav Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, and Udaro Pashto Vegam. These 6 urges he's going to tell us we must control. And so that is the opening instruction Srila Rupa Goswami will give in this Nectar instruction of the 11 verses. That is the first. So now the third point, and the final point Srila Prabhupada makes, is the conceptual key of the Nectar of Instruction. So he says that advancement in Krishna consciousness, it depends on the attitude of the follower. The attitude is the core thing that Rupa Goswami is trying to shape in this Nectar of Instruction. He's giving us instruction on how to develop the best attitude to guide our activities. And that is the key to making progress in devotional service. And thus this is again a very practical scripture for us. And
Prabhuji, can I ask a question?
Yes. Yes,
So,
please.
is it okay if I ask a question now, Prabhuji? Or can
Yes.
we ask it in the end?
Yes, you can ask now. I may defer it, but please go ahead and ask it.
So, what does when Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada says attitude of the follower, what does that attitude mean, Prabhupada? Can you please? What does that attitude? I mean, it's a very powerful word used here, but what does it actually entail? Like, what does it compromise?
Yes. Well, thank
Does
you.
it compromise?
That's exactly where I'm going. So that is a perfect question. So I'll answer it.
Oh, okay.
So, first of all, what does attitude mean? Must define what an attitude means. Attitude means the vision and mindset of the devotee. How does the devotee see everything around them? And what is the mindset, the mentality of that devotee? So, attitudes are things like being enthusiastic, being very humble, being very tolerant. These are attitudes. So there is a one-word description of the attitude that Srila Prabhupada is guiding us towards in this opening preface. Anybody care to guess? What is the one-word description of the attitude that we are trying to develop?
Patience.
Okay. Patience. Any other guesses or
Humility.
humility?
Being humble.
Okay, very close.
Behavior.
Okay.
Surrender.
Surrender. Yes.
Powerful.
So, surrender is the attitude that Srila Prabhupada is trying to bring us to. So, this is the mood of surrender. And in the study guide, we have this: the attitude of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is antithetical to that of any other spiritual practitioner. The karmis, yogis, jnanis, and all the impersonals, they try to attain the goal by their own power and expertise, by trying to manipulate and control the material energy. But the introspective Gaudiya Vaishnava realizes that true success will be attained by taking shelter of the internal energy and surrendering to Krishna. So the Gaudiya Vaishnava culture is one of surrender. It is one of surrender. Depending on Krishna and depending on his bona fide representatives in our lives. So this is the attitude that we are trying to develop. And surrender is a very deep concept, very broad topic that we can discuss over many, many days. But we'll just discuss a few aspects of this surrender to give us some clue into this attitude that we are trying to inculcate, again, for the purpose of making our lives successful, to helping us control the senses, and to become pure Vaishnavas. So, there are many guidelines on etiquette in devotional service, and this is one important piece that we'll come to see. That there are two factors that are most critical in determining our success in bhakti. And the two factors are, one, our humility, and two, our determination. How humble are we to acknowledge our real position, and how determined are we to achieve success? And we'll see in the third verse, Srila Rupa Goswami will open the third verse with utsahan, meaning one must be enthusiastic to achieve success in bhakti. And Prabhupada will comment in that purport that nothing we've achieved materially ever have we achieved without being determined. So humility and determination, these are the proven formula since time immemorial to guarantee rapid success in devotional service. So whether we are doing service at the home, in the temple, or whether we're preaching, anywhere we may be doing service, we must be following these principles. And service, if we study the activities of all of our great acharyas, we see one common characteristic of all of our great acharyas. They are extraordinarily expert in following the instructions. Rupa Goswami will give us the word anushilanam in describing pure bhakti. And anushilanam has three aspects to it, and one of the aspects to it is to follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. So the idea of Guru Parampara means one follows in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. So everything done must be done under the instruction and guidance. Whenever we are doing anything in bhakti, we should ask, under whose instruction am I acting? If we can answer that question, we are likely to be on the right track. But if we cannot answer that question, under whose instruction, it presents a dangerous position for us. Because it was our inability to follow instructions and to follow under the guidance in the spiritual world that led us here in the first place. So if we see Srila Prabhupada, his whole life was following the instructions of his spiritual master. We see Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur following the instructions of his father and his spiritual master. Narottam Das Thakur following the instructions of Jiva Goswami, of Lokanath Swami, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Raghunath Das Goswami following the instructions of Swarup Damodar. Like this, we see these acharyas showing us the perfection of this. This is the common thread you will see. So, what is the benefit for us of working under the instruction of our acharyas? One, we become protected from any disturbances on the path. It's hard for us to know exactly what to do. If we say practice bhakti, what does that mean? What are we supposed to do? How to practice bhakti? We can define it, but how to do it, we must understand. So by following instructions, we become protected from the disturbances. Sometimes it's hard to know who to associate with, who to hear from, what service is best for me, how I should engage my time, how I should balance the various things I must accomplish and finish. So by following instructions, we get great protection from possible disturbances. We also obtain the mercy from those instructions. The power of Srila Prabhupada said the reason he was successful was only because of the mercy of the instruction coming from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had great determination, this vyavasayatmika buddhi, to follow the instructions of his spiritual master. But that instruction doesn't come empty. It comes with great mercy, and that mercy carries all the way from Krishna through Guru Parampara. One is blessed with the potency to follow that instruction. So not only are we protected on the path to know what to do, but those instructions that we follow come with great potency and ability to carry forward, to overcome the challenges we may face in bhakti. So thus, this following is very important. And maybe most importantly, this under whose direction, it helps us learn the process of surrender. It takes a lot of humility and faith to be able to ask for guidance, to seek out guidance, let alone to follow it. Our false ego leads us to want to be independent. And the unfortunate thing is, the more we progress in bhakti, if we don't follow according to the instruction of our acharyas, this tendency to follow becomes less prominent. We think, oh, now I know what to do. Now I know how to practice. Because I have some knowledge. I've studied Nectar of Instruction. I know what to do. But if we successfully study Nectar of Instruction, we will inculcate this attitude of surrender, not this attitude of independence. I have figured it all out. Because that independence, again, is what led us here in the first place. So answering this question, under whose direction am I working, is a very powerful process for us to be able to understand, am I practicing this devotional service correctly? Okay? So that is some of the attitude around this topic of surrender. Some other aspects of attitude that are very helpful for us in our service, in our bhakti. One, we must know who is the real doer. We are very, very tiny, insignificant sparks, part and parcel of Krishna. So though we are very small and insignificant, that leads to our humility, we can become very enthusiastic and encouraged by the fact that we have a very direct and personal relationship with Krishna. So when we do our service, we can know we are very fortunate to have this relationship with Krishna. But understand, We are a very small spark. We may be doing some great big service. But remember, Krishna has many millions and billions and unlimited number of servants. And he is allowing us to do that service. Krishna doesn't need our service, but out of his love, he is allowing us and engaging us and inspiring us to do that service. So in this way, we can remain humble. Srila Prabhupada accomplished so many things around the world, yet he was so humble. And how he was able to remain humble? Because he knew he was just an insignificant spark, empowered not by his own ability, but empowered by the mercy of his spiritual master. And because he remained determined to follow that instruction, yes, then some great things were happening. But he never took it as I am doing. So if we remain humble and have this attitude of, I am just an insignificant spark, following in the instructions given to me, then actually we can accomplish extraordinary things. But if we start to lose that humility, our progress in devotional service will very quickly be checked. So this attitude can be very, very important for us in practicing our devotional service. We should think, Krishna has so many better servants than me. But for some reason, out of his great love, he is tolerating my service. Unfortunately, we sometimes think, and we start to tally up all the great things I am doing, and we look around us and think why nobody else is doing. But instead, we should understand our real position, which is that we are just being enabled to serve by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of Rupa Goswami, and by the mercy of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are some aspects of the attitude that we are trying to follow. And so our advancement in Krishna consciousness, it is not dependent on how many verses we have memorized, how straight my back is while I chant my japa, how nicely I may sing for the Lord, or how beautifully I may decorate the Lord. Our advancement depends on our attitude. And the attitude is our consciousness residing within our heart. So that is what we will try to shape and guide as we study this Nectar of Instruction, as we study these 11 extraordinarily powerful verses. So this Nectar of Instruction, it teaches us specifically this attitude and mindset that we need to make in order to achieve this rapid advancement in Krishna consciousness. We will see many verses that give us practical advice, how to control the tongue, how to control anger, how to avoid over-endeavor, wasting time, prajalpa, keeping good association, serving devotees, chanting the holy names, going to Vrindavan. We're going to get very practical instruction in these 11 verses. And always let us remember that this is meant to guide our activities. So as we read these, how can I bring these into my day-to-day life? It is not just about accumulating knowledge and keep doing the same thing. It is about shaping our day-to-day life. So that's what this Nectar of Instruction is going to guide us. So I'll just conclude with a brief outline of the key themes that we'll see in the Nectar of Instruction. We've already talked about the importance of controlling the mind and senses. We've discussed the attitude, the consciousness of the devotee. Prabhupada will comment in several of his purports about the purpose of ISKCON, why he created ISKCON. He's going to tell us to give us a chance to have good association. We'll see the importance of guru and disciple relationship. What is the role of guru in our life? And what is the responsibility of us as disciples? We'll see that very prominently discussed. We'll see the importance of sadhu sangha, the importance of association of devotees, and how it protects us on the path of devotional service. And we'll see the various types of devotees, the behaviors and qualifications. We'll discuss this Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari, and how devotees interact with each other based on these different themes. So these are some themes that we'll discuss, and including the bhakti, the different stages of bhakti and its development. And that will carry on into the Nectar of Devotion. So in terms of the flow of the verses, Srila Rupa Goswami from verse 1 to 11 is taking us from Shraddha to Prema. From Shraddha, our faith, to Sadhu Sangha, association, to Bhajana Kriya, the practice of devotional service, to then the purification, the Narta Nivritti, the fourth stage. And from the purification of our Nartas, we become fixed, Nishta. And then the taste, Ruchi, comes. And once the taste of the holy names comes, then we become a Shakti, attached. And once we become addicted to the holy names, Bhava Bhakti, and finally Krishna Prema. So from Shraddha to Prema, it is 9 steps. And Rupa Goswami will be taking us through those steps in these 11 verses. So the first verse is going to give us the symptoms of the self-controlled devotee, of the Goswami. It is not a caste, but it is a qualification. So we'll describe what is a Goswami, and how we all can become Goswamis, and how we must become Goswamis, and not become Godasas. We should control our senses, not be controlled by our senses. 2 very, very distinct outcomes. Verses 2 through 4, we're going to see the behaviors and practices of such devotees. So Rupa Goswami is going to give us the 6 things that are very dangerous for our bhakti. 6 things that we must avoid to prevent destroying our bhakti. And then he's going to give us 6 things that are very favorable, that we should perpetuate to assure success in bhakti. So 6 things to avoid and 6 things to do. And then he's going to tell us in the 4th verse how to associate with devotees. What are the 6 ways in which devotees associate with each other? So that'll comprise verses 2 through 4. And then 5 through 8, where Rupa Goswami is going to discuss the internal development and vision of this devotee, how he sees and interacts with other devotees. And then finally, the Rupa Goswami will guide us into understanding the different levels of devotees, the successive order, taking us to the highest realm of Krishna's most dearest devotees. And where the most potent places of worship are. Ultimately, he'll take us to Sri Vrindavan Dham. So this is the outline of what we'll study in the coming weeks. And with this presence of the preface, we've again covered 3 topics. Who is Rupa Goswami? He is our guiding acharya in our Guru Parampara. We discussed the first duty for all of us is to gain control of our mind and senses. And finally, the attitude of the follower is very important. And this attitude we're trying to bring out is this mood of surrender. Understanding that humility and determination are the principal drivers of our success in bhakti. So this is the preface. We'll take any questions or comments today.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
in the beginning you used the two words internal energy. What exactly is internal energy?
I don't recall when I used the word internal energy, but internal energy refers to the spiritual energy of Krishna.
Okay.
So there is the internal energy of Krishna, which is his spiritual potency. There is the external energy, which is his material inferior energy. And then we as Jiva are marginal. We are made up of his superior internal energy, but because we have a tendency to associate with matter, we are marginal. Sometimes we are associating with the inferior material energy, and sometimes, and we are working our way to associating with Krishna's superior energy. Like that. So, do you remember the context in which I said internal energy? Maybe I can answer that.
I think so. When I was reading the guide
Yeah.
last week, Prabhu, it comes in the beginning. I think so. It's
Yes.
it's about focusing on the internal. That's how we become devotees, or something like that.
Yeah, so that is focusing on the internal energy of Krishna. Right? There are three categories of his internal energy. There are unlimited energies of Krishna, but they can be put into three categories: his Sandhani Shakti, Haladini Shakti, and Samvit Shakti. So we'll discuss that in more detail coming up. So it's okay. Any other
Hare
questions?
Krishna, bro.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, so you gave the flow of the verses, right? Like the symptoms of self-control devotee, and then their external behavior, and all, their vision and things like that. I was wondering, is this flow, like is this book provided with the aspect of like they are trying to talk about like the behavior of devotees or like his mindset and everything, so that we know that we have to follow in that footstep. Is that the purpose of providing this flow in the verses, bro?
Yeah. It is. It's not, because remember, this is a practical guide, right? So a practical guide means I should be able to read it and then apply it. Read something and apply it. That is a guide, right? Like if I pull out a map, which is a guide from point A to point B, I understand. I go straight, then I turn left, then I turn right, then I go straight some more, then I turn left. It's a guide, right? So like this nectar of instruction is a guide of how to make ultimate success in our life. So the flow is taking us to first establishing the foundation, and then building upon that as we move through the verses. And you'll see as you read them. And if you want to get a clue into that, just read the verses. It'll take you 10 minutes, and you'll see how Rupa Goswami is sort of building our consciousness to understand, ultimately taking us to the essence, the ultimate of all bhakti in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So yes, that is the purpose of that flow.
Okay. So on that, I have one question, bro. Like specifically on this external behavior and then the way they practice the devotional service and everything. If this guidelines is going to tell us like this is the way the devotee is going to behave, and this is the way you should be behaving too, like it kind of brings or like takes our the actual nature within us. So everybody is unique, everybody is different, everybody has their own thing. But if this is the way that we have to come to like external behavior, I'm like not understanding that yet. Like
No, it's not saying that. It's not going to tell you, Prabhu, you should only eat rasgullas because somebody else likes samosas. It is not that. It is a guide around the principles, not around the details. That everyone should, do only this service. No, it is the principles. How we should interact with devotees, how we should avoid judging other people, how we should engage in the chanting of the holy names, how we should aspire to make our way to Sri Vrindavan Dham, and ultimately how Vrindavan Dham is within all of us in where we may be serving. So it is not the specifics to make us all homogeneous, single-minded robots. That is not, it is to guide our, we all have a very pure, eternal service in relationship with Krishna that is unique. And so this guide is how to bring about that internal, eternal service we have with Krishna. So it is not going to create uniform. It is going to, it is again, it's like read any self-help book, read any business book, how to become a successful CEO. It is not making every CEO the exact same person. It is giving guidance and principles that can be applied in that person's situation. So like that, this book is a set of guidelines of how to make us successful in our devotional life. But we'll not all become the exact same.
Okay. So it's more like external goals, or like the goals
No, it's not
than the behavior.
It's not the goal. No, it's the behaviors. The behavior will be, don't judge someone else based on bodily external symptoms. That's not a goal, that's a behavior. Don't do that. You have the free will to do that, but if you want to make your life successful, don't do that. Don't over endeavor to gain material things. Don't be greedy. So these are going to be instructions. Again, it'll be up to us whether we want to follow them or not. That is our individual free will. But if we want to achieve the success that's there, then these will be the activities. So it's not just the goals, but it'll be the actual activities.
Okay. Sure, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes?
Hare Krishna.
Yes?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Here they are talking about becoming, the ultimate goal of this Nectar instruction is to become the Goswami, to become the pure Vaishnavas. Now that is a very, very highest of the pedestal. So, I mean, how one can progress to that highest level of becoming a Goswami? Goswami being complete control of the mind and senses. I mean, one can attempt it towards doing it, but achieving, I feel it is pretty not that practical to become a Goswami, at least in this lifetime or something.
Yeah, well, that is why you should stay tuned. Because you said, I feel it is not practical, or I feel it is not achievable. That is okay. Now let's see what Rupa Goswami will tell us. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us this highest platform. Yes, you are right. To be a pure Vaishnava is so high. We should not think it's some simple, thing to achieve. But he gave that highest platform with the most powerful force to elevate us. The rockets. Think about it, to go into space seems pretty hard if I jump with my own 2 feet. But if I equip some rockets to my body, I can go. So, using a mundane example, to reach this highest stage of pure bhakti, yes, it's very, very high. But because of the extraordinary mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his Mahavadanaya, most magnanimous, he has given us this access with relatively simple process. And that is what Rupa Goswami is going to show us, how to do it. If, when you were a young child, someone told you you could perform open heart surgery, you would say, impossible. But with the proper instruction, open heart surgery is very possible. So in our immature, childish state, speaking only of myself, yeah, it seems very, very high and impossible. Maybe 10 lifetimes. But with very potent instruction and a very determined attitude of me as the follower of that instruction, I can achieve it, and you can achieve it. So that is what Rupa Goswami is going to give us. How to achieve this highest platform. That is up to us. But he'll tell us it's achievable tomorrow if we are determined. How badly do we want it? That is the only question. And there is evidence around us everywhere of those who have been lifted up from the lowest of lowest rung to the highest pure Vaishnava. All around us there are so many examples to give us further proof. So we'll get the how, and we have the proof as well. So stay tuned.
One more question. When you talked about the attitude of the follower, right? This question. Yeah. So one was the surrender. Then we also need to talk about the humility, determination, and also the following the instructions. All that will be included in that attitude, Prabhuji?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. So, next, yep. Hare Krishna.
So for next class, is there we have to continue reading the guide? Is that what it is, Prabhuji? Or
Yeah.
do we have to, like we read the first 8 pages of the book?
Yep.
The
So-
Nectar is, do we have to read from 8 to 16? What is
Correct.
the...
Yeah, so next week we'll discuss verse 1 and the purport, and then you can follow the up to all the content for verse 1 from the study guide. Yeah. I'll post it, but yes. So next week we'll discuss verse 1. So the next 3 weeks we'll be discussing one verse each week, and then we'll discuss a couple of verses together, verses 4 and 5. But the next 3 weeks are the purports Srila Prabhupada presents are extraordinary. They are worth reading 3, 4, 5, 10, 100 times. They're so extraordinary. The first 3 purports, all of Prabhupada's purports are extraordinary, but these are extraordinary. So we'll enjoy reading and verse 1 for next week.
And the homework, no, Prabhuji, we have to do that verse 1 homework.
Correct.
Be there. So we are supposed to finish it before the class starts.
Correct. Yes. So you can go back and fine tune anything you'd like from your preface if you'd like, based on this. But then, yes, completing it ahead of time will again enhance your absorption of this. So,
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just the same question, just to get more clarification.
yes.
So, like in homework submission, there is a week 1